Hi, everyone. In today's lecture, we're going to talk about setting and working toward goals. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, wait a minute. In last week's lecture, didn't we learn that success and achieving goals isn't related to happiness? Didn't we talk about the principle of hedonic adaptation, where we get used to the success that previously brought us happiness? And didn't we talk about purpose dissipation, where once we achieve our goals, we are often not as happy as we thought we would be because we no longer have the purpose of working toward that goal? And last, didn't we talk about how when we achieve goals or change our status, we just develop a new comparison group and compare ourselves to even more successful people? So why are we now going to be learning about how to set and achieve goals? Well, let me start by addressing a few important points. First, remember in last week's lecture, I taught how achievement and success may not be related to happiness, meaning it doesn't automatically bring happiness. But I also said that it doesn't mean achievement isn't important. I believe that achievement in and of itself has value. So we need to work on both. We need to work on achieving things, improving, and growing, and we need to work on happiness. And I believe we can do both at the same time. We just need to have the right mindset when working toward our goals. Second, as we talked about achievement and success last time, we were talking about striving for big goals. These were things that we wanted to accomplish, kind of like a bucket list of achievements we wanted to make in life. Here, we are talking about setting goals to develop healthy habits. We might consider these to be micro goals. Do you see the difference? Examples of big accomplishment goals are, I would like to become CEO of a company. I would like to climb Mount Everest. I would like to run a 4-minute mile. Those all have an endpoint, a point when we have accomplished them. And while those types of goals are good, they're not the types of goals that bring lasting happiness. Examples of micro goals are, I would like to drink 64 ounces of water a day. I would like to get 7 hours of sleep at night. I would like to walk 10,000 steps every day. These are all accomplishable, but there's no set endpoint to them. These are about building healthy habits in areas that are associated with happiness. So let me emphasize again that it is important to do both. For example, this year I set a goal for myself to get 600 points on the Army physical fitness test. That is the max points that one can get across 6 fitness activities, including deadlift, ball throw, push-ups, sprint drag carry, plank, and a 2-mile run. Now, I'm not in the Army, but my brother is, so I thought this would be a good challenge to do with him. Now, when I accomplish this goal sometime this year, will I be any happier? Well, maybe for a day or two, but it probably won't bring long-term happiness. Because of this, I also have a goal of daily exercise and physical activity. And this regular physical activity is something that will make me happy. So the goals we are talking about now are about building habits in things that do make us happy. Last, as we set our goals for the course and throughout the rest of our lives, we want to focus on personal growth and achievement, rather than a comparison to others. There are always going to be people who can do things better than we can. And some things come easy to some people, but are difficult for others. So we have to work to ignore the comparisons. Let me give one more personal example here. One physical activity that I really enjoy is weightlifting, which I started about 5 years ago. About 3 years ago, I started to include the deadlift in my workouts. The very first time I attempted the deadlift, I lifted 260 pounds off the ground, and I felt pretty good about that start. But then each week I wanted to try to improve. And so over the course of a few months, I did end up getting up to 315 pounds. I had improved by 55 pounds, and again, I was feeling pretty good. But then my high school age son informed me that some of his 15-year-old friends could lift 315 pounds. So now some social comparisons started kicking in, and my 315 lift started to seem pretty wimpy to me. Social comparison robbed my happiness. From there, it took me about a year to reach my next big benchmark, 405 pounds. When I got that, I was feeling pretty great about my progress. But then, in an effort to improve my technique, I started watching videos online of people doing the deadlift. And I saw people lifting 700, 800, or even 1,000 pounds. And the social comparison crept back in. My significant improvement seemed weak in comparison to what others were doing. Now, a few months ago, before getting injured, I lifted 455. I hit that PR a few times, but it just wasn't very satisfying. I wasn't nearly as strong as many others out there, and so I wasn't happy about it. It wasn't until that point that I realized how much the social comparison was affecting me. Not only was I less happy with my strength, but the deadlift, which had always been my favorite exercise, was no longer fun. As I recovered from my injury, I took a step back and reminded myself to focus on my personal progress. I was lifting almost 200 pounds more than when I started 3 years earlier, and I was being consistent in my workout plan. Now, as I have changed my attitude, my love for the deadlift has returned. I do have a goal that I'm working toward to eventually get 500 pounds, but that is a goal for myself to encourage personal progress, not a goal of comparison to others. And I may get it, or I may not. Either way, I know that one day as I age, my strength will eventually start to go down. But that's okay too, because irrespective of the total weight of my deadlift, I can still always have the goal to push myself physically in some way on it. Okay, with those thoughts in mind, let's get into the recommendations for setting and achieving healthy goals. There are 9 specific recommendations that I want to share with you today. The first recommendation is to set goals based on what you would like to achieve, not based on what you think others want you to do. There's an often study related to this that was conducted back in 1992. In this study, the researchers had 102 ninth and 10th grade students set goals at the start of the semester for the grade that they wanted to achieve in their social studies course. The parents of these students also set goals for the grade they wanted their children to receive. Now, while both the parents' and students' goals were significantly correlated with end of semester grades in the class, the correlation between the students' goals and the final grades was much stronger. In fact, while their own goals explained 27% of the variance in their final grades, parents' goals only explained about 7%. And the stronger correlation between setting one's goals and goal achievement may be due to several reasons. First, we typically know what we are able to achieve. In that same study, they found that the students' goals were highly correlated with their self-efficacy beliefs about learning and academic achievement. The parents' goals for the students were not correlated at all with those things. Second, when we set our own goals, we are more motivated to achieve them. In general, in our lives, we experience something called cognitive dissonance, when our preferences and values don't align with our actions. This cognitive dissonance can be a strong motivator to either change our values and preferences or to start doing actions that align with them. When someone else sets a goal for us, or we just believe someone wants us to be a certain way, it may or may not align with our personal values. And even if it does align with our values, it is easy to give up on a goal that is set for us because we think, I'm only doing this because so-and-so told me to, or so-and-so wants me to. However, when we set our own goals based on our own personal values, we are more committed to them. We want to achieve them because they are part of who we are. They become more meaningful. Now, throughout this semester, we'll talk about 12 different self-care areas, and you'll be asked to set goals for each of them. I'm covering all 12 of these areas, not because it's essential that you do all of them for the rest of your life. Instead, I want to teach you several options that you can choose from. You may find that some fit really well with your values and preferences, and others do not. For example, I personally enjoy gratitude as a self-care activity, but don't really like mindfulness much. Your job is to practice them all during this class, but then pick which ones fit you and build habits out of them to practice throughout the rest of your life. And even within each of the self-care areas that we're going to cover, it will be your job to identify the exact goals that are going to be meaningful to you. We're all different. So in the week that we talk about volunteering, some of you might find it meaningful to pick up garbage at a park, others to visit the elderly in an assisted living facility, some to serve food at a homeless shelter, some to give blood, and others to offer academic tutoring for free. If I was to force us all to do the exact same activity, some might like it, but most would not find it very meaningful or effective. So pick goals that are meaningful to you. The second recommendation is to not work on too many goals at one time. Oftentimes, we might look at our lives and see many areas where we want to improve. But if we focus on too much at once, we will end up feeling overwhelmed and give up. This overwhelmed feeling can even turn into negative perceptions of our self-worth and eventually depression. Instead, just pick one or two areas that you want to improve in, focus on those areas until you establish habits in them, then identify the next area to work on. Once we pick the goal that we would like to achieve, the third recommendation is to break it down into small steps or pieces and then work on those, just one step at a time. This is sometimes referred to as incremental gains. For example, let's say for this year, I wanted to learn how to play the guitar. If I just set that as one big goal, I probably wouldn't get very far on it. I'd probably either put it off until maybe November or December comes around and then feel like it's too late to start then and just give up. Or I would jump all in right now, go buy a guitar, buy lesson books, and for a few days practice 1 or 2 hours a day. But jumping all in like that doesn't create a sustainable habit either. Suddenly adding a 2-hour activity to my daily schedule doesn't fit with everything else that I have going on. And so I would usually give up after a little while. So instead, I can get a little more specific on my year-end goal. Maybe something like, by the end of the year, I would like to be able to play 3 Bob Marley songs on the guitar. Redemption Song, 3 Little Birds, and One Love. And then break that down into small incremental steps to build to that. So first, in week 1, my goal might be to do some research online to find out what a quality guitar might be that fits my price range. For week 2, I might set a goal to buy a guitar. For week 3 and 4, I could have a goal just to hold the guitar and play around with it however I want for 2 minutes a day, Monday through Friday. Then, for week 5, I could up it to practice drumming for 5 minutes a day. Then for week 6, continue practice strumming for 5 minutes a day and identify an online beginner lesson plan that I would want to follow. Then for weeks 7 through 12, follow along with the lesson plan for 5 minutes a day. Then for weeks 13 through 18, follow along with the same lesson plan or switch to a more advanced one as needed for 7 minutes a day. Then up it to 10 minutes a day for weeks 19 through 30. In weeks 31 through 37, my goals could be continue with 10 minutes of practice from a lesson plan, but also add in 5 minutes of practice on One Love. And then weeks 38 through 44, continue with 10 minutes of practice from a lesson plan and 5 minutes of practice on Three Little Birds. Then in weeks 45 through 51, 10 minutes lesson plan and 5 minutes redemption song. Finally, in week 52, practice 15 minutes a day on all three and perform the songs for my family at the end of the week. So by the end of the year, I will be able to play the 3 Bob Marley songs that I wanted to learn, as well as likely several other songs from the lesson plans that I followed. Additionally, by approaching it incrementally, starting at 2 minutes and working my way up, I will have developed a habit of practicing guitar 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And I would have obtained some level of happiness that comes with engaging in a hobby and developing a talent. The incremental gains made this possible. The fourth recommendation is to set SMART goals. Now, you've likely heard this one before. SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable or achievable, relevant, and time-based. The concept of SMART goals was first developed by George Doran in 1981. In putting forth this acronym, Doran was suggesting a method for managers to motivate employees to accomplish certain tasks or objectives at work. And in the original acronym, A stood for assignable and R stood for realistic. However, the most commonly seen SMART acronym now replace those with attainable or achievable and relevant to make it more applicable to individual goal setting. So let's go back to the guitar example. At first, I said one could have a goal to learn to play guitar by the end of the year. That goal could be relevant if it is something that I cared about, and it is time-based by the end of the year. But it's not really specific. When the end of the year comes around, what would count as having learned how to play the guitar? Would it be just holding the guitar correctly and being able to identify fingering for different notes? Or would it be mastering Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven? And because this goal is not specific, it's also not measurable or achievable. But the goal to play those 3 Bob Marley songs is specific, measurable, and achievable. When we set and work towards SMART goals like these, it makes it more likely that we will accomplish those broad, vague ones as well. Let me say one more thing about the achievable part. Our goals should be focused on things that are entirely under our control. For example, a runner might set as a goal to get first place in the 400-meter dash, that's once around the track, at the district meet. But to some degree, that goal is out of the runner's control. There may be other runners in the district that are faster than them, or they may just have an off day on the day of the meet. So instead, the runner could set as a goal to get a PR of 45 seconds at districts. Although they may have gotten close to that in the past, a goal like this is still not entirely under their control either. They may wake up sick the morning of the race, or there might be strong winds during the time of the event. Although these types of goals can help give one drive, they can also often lead to disappointment. So instead, Achievable goals are about behaviors one performs. The runner could set goals pertaining to what they're going to do to give them the best chance to PR or get first at districts. Goals about what drills they are going to run in practice, what amount of effort they are going to give, and how they are going to sleep and eat during the season leading up to the event. The fifth recommendation is to tell someone about your goals. Now, you have likely heard of this one before too, but you have to do it the right way, or else it can backfire. Remember previously I mentioned the idea of cognitive dissonance. The idea that when there is a discrepancy between our values and our actions, it motivates us to change one of those so they are congruent. Well, researchers discovered that when we tell others about our intentions to do something, they actually start to identify us based on the goal that we just shared with them. So, for example, if you told people that this year you wanted to work on being a kinder person, just from saying that, those people would start to identify you as a kind person. And in turn, you would also start to identify yourself as being kind, as having completed or already accomplished the goal. So you would be telling yourself, I am a kind person. While believing in yourself is important, when it comes to goal setting, identifying as who you would be once you have completed your goals is sometimes premature, because now you perceive yourself as already living in line with your values. And so you are then less motivated to make any behavioral changes. The researchers in this study referred to this phenomenon as symbolic self-creation. The idea that sometimes believing you are a certain way because sometimes you believe you are a certain way because you think about being that way and talk about being that way, but not because you are actually taking actions to be that way. And when you believe that you're already that way, you're less likely to then take the actions that are needed to change. So does that mean we should never talk about our goals with others? Again, not necessarily. If it is someone who is already better than you at the goal you want to work on, then the symbolic self-creation isn't as likely to happen. And it is helpful to tell those types of people your goals. Because when you tell them the goal, your tendency towards social comparison keeps you in check, and you don't adopt the new identity of already being good at that thing. Because in comparison to them, you can see that you're not. Also, if it is someone who will actually hold you accountable, then telling them the goal can be helpful too. So if I just tell my coworkers and casual acquaintances that I'm going to eat healthier this year, just by telling them that, they're going to see me as a healthier eater. I am also going to see myself as a healthier eater, even though I haven't taken any steps yet to eat healthily. And these people are not really going to see my eating behavior over time. So I know I wouldn't be negatively evaluated if I didn't follow through on it. But if I tell my wife and children that I'm going to eat healthier this year, I know that they are going to keep me accountable. And better yet, if I tell them my plan, my smart plan for eating healthy, so they know exactly what I want to do, then they can help me achieve it. Then if they see me going, say, for a donut for breakfast, something that might not fit with my plan, they're going to wonder about my goal and ask me how I'm doing on it. And not only do I have to be accountable to them, but they can offer support by recommending tasty, healthy alternatives to the donut. They can not eat donuts around me, and they can give me lots of praise when they see me making healthy food choices. The sixth recommendation is to pair your new goal behavior with something you already always do. This works especially well when trying to develop a new habit. Often we fail to complete our goals just because we are not used to doing them. They are not on our minds, so we forget about them. However, if you can pair the new goal with something that is already automatic, the new goal can become automatic too. A couple years back, I decided it would be a good idea for me to start taking a daily vitamin. So I bought a bottle that would last me a year, and when I got home, I placed it in the cupboard right next to where we keep all of our medicine. That seemed like a natural spot for it to me. I did take it for a few days, but after about a week, I stopped remembering to pull it down and take one. At some point, I realized I needed to make an adjustment. So I moved the bottle next to the ingredients for a shake that I had every morning. And having that shake was already a habit for me. So each morning when I pulled out those ingredients, I saw the vitamins and took one as well. And eventually, taking the vitamins became a habit as well. So think about things that you already automatically do throughout the day. It could be things like going to the bathroom, eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, getting out of or into bed, grabbing your phone, getting into your car, getting dressed, or checking the mail. Then try to plan out a way for you to pair your new goal with that existing activity and link them together as much as possible so it is difficult to do one without the other. For example, if you'd like to pair writing in your journal, your new goal, with charging your phone at night, something you always do already, then put your phone cord inside your journal each morning when you're done charging your phone. This will force you to pick up your journal and remember your goal each night as you get ready to charge your phone. Try one pairing for a little bit of time, and if that doesn't work, try your goal with a different automatic behavior. And after pairing them together for enough time, the new behavior, journaling, will become automatic in and of itself. The seventh recommendation is to set up your life in a way that forces you to complete your goal. That way, you're not just working on a goal, but you're living a goal-consistent life. Say, for example, you have a goal to get 10,000 steps in every day. Most likely, if you're setting that goal for yourself, it is not something that naturally happens for you. So, in order for you to achieve it, you would either have to plan for daily walks and build in time to do that into your schedule, or you could just adjust the way you live your life so you have to walk more. This could include things like purposely parking far away from your home, work, or the store, purposely leaving your phone or other important things in your car or at the far side of your house or office, so you have to frequently walk there and back when you need them. Never taking the elevator and making that a core part of who you are, saying to yourself, I am someone who always takes the stairs, and getting a pet that requires daily walks with you. Personally, I always ride my bike to work. I do this as a way to make sure that I get in some regular cardio exercise. Although most days are fine, I don't always enjoy it, especially when it's raining or snowing out. But I refuse to buy a car for my work commute. That way I have to ride my bike in. I could buy a car so I could drive in on those days when the weather is bad and I don't want to ride. But I know that if I did that, eventually I would almost always be driving. I'd continue to make excuses and each day would become a driving day rather than just riding in. And my good habit would be gone. So to prevent that from happening, I just don't have a car for me to use for that purpose. 8th, as you work on your goals, remember to focus on the goal, not just the desired outcome. I touched on this some already as I talked about setting SMART goals with making them achievable. I mentioned focusing on the behaviors that are under your control. These are usually the daily behaviors that you turn into habits rather than a desired end state outcome. Going back to several of the examples that I have mentioned in this lecture, doing your best in your training sessions won't always lead you to get first in the track meet. Walking 10,000 steps daily might not always lead to a desired weight loss. Daily practice of the guitar might not result in mastering a certain song. And my regular weightlifting might not ever lead me to get a 500-pound deadlift. So as we set our goals, we should keep our focus on the daily behaviors and make sure that we find joy and satisfaction in completing them, rather than some other desired outcome. Remember, it's in the journey that counts when it comes to happiness. The last goal recommendation for this lecture is to approach setbacks with compassion. When you experience a setback, be compassionate and quickly get back on track. Over the course of my academic career, I have had the opportunity to collaborate with Dr. John Norcross, an internationally recognized expert on goal setting and motivation. In his book, Changeology, he talks about the difference between a slip or a lapse and a fall or a relapse. Slips constitute minor setbacks. They represent relatively infrequent reoccurrences of the old behavior. In contrast, relapses occur when you completely leave your goals and go back 100% to your old behavior. Whenever we are working on developing new habits, slips are a given. They happen to all of us. After all, making changes in our lives is hard work, rewarding work, but hard work. When these slips happen, though, we can become critical of ourselves and see them as relapses or complete failures. When we view slips as complete failures, we're more likely to give up on our goals and quit trying. In this way, we discount all of the effort that we have already made and all of the change that has already occurred. When a child is first learning how to walk, they're going to have times where they stumble and fall. At those times, parents jump in with compassion, tell them it's okay, and help them get up and try again. When we slip on our goals, it will be tempting to say, I can't do this after all, or that doesn't really count, or I already messed up once, another time won't hurt, or I'll just start working on this next week. I'll be ready to work on it then. Instead, we should recognize the slip and accept that it happened, have compassion toward ourselves, remind ourselves of all the progress that we have made up until that point, remind ourselves why we are personally working on those goals and the happiness they will bring, and then get back on track as soon as possible. Okay, that's it for today's lecture. Next week, we will start talking about the different types of self-care. With those lessons, you'll be asked to set weekly goals. As you do that, work on applying the principles that we talked about today. This will lead to a greater amount of success as you strive to achieve your goals, and also a greater amount of happiness as you work toward them.